On the 22nd of February, 2022, the entire world became glued to the news as Russia invaded Ukraine from 7 different directions. And everybody knew what was going to happen. Team, I don't normally go back and revisit a topic so quickly as I'm going to do in this one, but I want to marinate on this a little bit, only as a means of illustrating how we can apply the first principle of leadership, or that first fundamental of land navigation, which respectively is to know yourself and to seek self-improvement, and quite frankly, to know where you are. This video is, in fact, sponsored. Man, I'm super stoked and pumped up, man. It is sponsored by none other than the Tears of a Commie. And this morning, I'm drinking a little bit of coffee. But oh no, that is not quite good enough. We got to add some creamer. And there is no creamer quite like the Tears. And this flask is now empty. So I'm going to need y'all to like and share this thing and leave some comments, because that's how that flask gets filled up. Let's take a sippy now. Oh, man, huge shout out to my sponsor. Thank you so much. So, why did we're gonna marinate on 2 key facts, if you will, and then use those 2 elements as a means, again, of applying it back around to us individually and collectively. Because, this process of developing our tactical virtue and defining who we are is absolutely, it's way more important to me than a lot of the, what ifs and everything else. So let's dive into this. So why did everybody believe that Russia was going to steamroll Ukraine? Well, it's quite simple, right? For the better part of 100 years, Russia has been in the number 2 spot for the world's most powerful militaries in throughout the globe, right? Number 2. Almost 1 million soldiers, tens of thousands of airplanes and tanks, and hundreds of satellites up in the sky. They've got a little battle testing under their belt, and the other side, not so much. In fact, they didn't even rank in the top 20, bottom 20s, right? 27 to 29 is where they ranked in the world. Now, to put that into perspective, let's say you had a professional team, sports team, right? And they were playing a low-level high school or low-level college team. Or maybe you want to keep it in the same division. Maybe you had, something like a Notre Dame playing in the national championship against the University of Alabama. Everybody kind of knows what's going to win, except the problem is Ukraine wasn't even overrated at the time. They were rated right about probably where they should have been. And Russia is, coming in at this number 2 spot. And again, 7 different directions, man. They're taking airports and everything else, right? And so I think, the world stood by, and we got some news clips we're going to look at. So let's see what the news said.
Started before dawn. Ukraine woke to explosions around the capital.
Russia overnight launched its long-anticipated attack.
Explosions rocking several cities, including the capital of Kyiv, will lead to, quote, consequences they have never seen.
Officials fear the Ukrainian capital could fall as early as this weekend.
We're dealing with attack submarines.
And I had tons of comments on the video, right, telling me that it was not Russia that was getting their butt kicked, and that's kind of what spurred the idea that we need to chew the fat on this a little bit. And they said, go listen to Colonel McGregor. Well, let's listen to what Colonel McGregor said last year.
We're going to watch as 130, 140,000 troops almost over. And if they don't surrender within the next 24 hours, I suspect that the Russians will ultimately annihilate them. No, I think they're just surrounding the Ukrainian forces, and they are annihilating them. So I would say another 10 days, this should be completely over. Come to terms with reality. So the war, for all intents and purposes, has been decided, focused on the destruction of Ukrainian forces. That's largely complete.
Now, if retired Colonel McGregor was speaking of, maybe some religious predictions and was wrong that many times, you may call him a false, what's that phrase? I can't remember. If you can remember, leave it a comment down below to help me out. And it's not, this is not to say that we should, be looking at this war and through any lens specifically, other than the fact that when it all began, everybody knew that Russia was going to obliterate Ukraine, completely annihilate them, right? And 18 months later, that is not what has happened. Now, you could argue all day back and forth about why that is and because of how much money we sent them and everything else. But even in the early days, again, you had Russia coming in 7 directions, and they got kicked out of some airports pretty quickly. And they had, you look at this timeline, right? So they started off and they had a little bit of a chunk of land, and then they kind of got beat back, and where it quite frankly still currently is, just the eastern portion. And we'll see what happens from there. So here we have these two key facts, if you will. One, Russia, second largest, most powerful military in the world, going up against number 29. Everybody knew that they were going to mop the floor with them. And that is not what has happened, right? So how can we use this as an illustration to help look back at ourselves? Because it's easy to look out there and to make judgments and to suppose things, and it's easy to assume things about ourselves and about how powerful we may be or feel that we are. And this is where this is, right? I don't care what your background is. And when I say you, I mean me as well. Like collectively, I don't care what our background is. I don't care what experience that we've had. I don't care how much stuff we have stockpiled. When things get nasty, things go sideways. And we've seen this laid out going back to the 50s, right? That when engagements start happening, and not just U.S. involved engagements, when we've seen it with the French in Southeast Asia, we've seen it with the U.S., we've seen it, throughout the Middle East. We've seen some operations not go so well down in South America. And there obviously there's a complexity of reasons for these outcomes. But the bottom line up front is sometimes when you put yourself up on a high horse and say that I am the GOAT at something, and certainly we would even say that about our military, right? Our military is the GOAT. And that is not an untrue statement. But when boots hit the ground and things actually start to go down, sometimes things don't always go the way that you thought they were. Sometimes when you push back, even on the individual level, when you push back you get smacked down in the face, right? You didn't know that you were facing a Mike Tyson and you just got your ass handed to you. You didn't know, when you were out doing a patrol that there was going to be a sniper in the woods, right? Things don't quite always go the way that you planned. And so I think if we use this and say, you know what, I'm not all there yet. I have to keep training. I have to keep pushing myself. I have to keep doing honest after action reviews of performance and making modifications to my mindset, making modifications to my gear, the follow-on training that I need to become even more proficient. I need to change the variables. I need to start doing stuff at night. I need to start doing stuff in an urban environment. I need to start doing stuff in a wooded and mountainous or desert environment. I need to go ruck 12 miles and then do my shooting drills. I need to do things in limited visibility at night without the aid of night vision devices or thermal devices. I need to go old school. It's too easy to have all the Gucci gear and say that I'm now ready to go kick ass. But the truth is, the gear is not going to determine your outcome. How much money you spend, just like we've seen with Russia, no matter the fact of how much money they have invested in their military, that gear and that money spent is not going to determine the outcome. Your resolve, your determination, your grit, your mettle is going to push you through conflict, or it is going to cause you to get drugged down into the mud, become isolated, stuck, and a casualty in the war that you may not have ever even thought you were in. Team, let me know what you think down in the comments below as we continue to master our craft and develop our tactical virtue. Until then, you stay out there, you keep grinding, and you stay stoked. Team, if you want to master your craft and develop your tactical virtue, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell so that you can stay up to date on future content. Consider becoming a channel member. It's going to give you exclusive access to content not available to anybody else. I appreciate you guys. Until then, you stay out there, you keep grinding, and you stay stoked.